There's a man called Glenn Thomas who said he saw three burying another one years and years ago. When they'd buried it, they pushed a huge boulder over on top of the grave, scattered leaves and sticks around and walked away. We don't know how true his story is, but he said he saw three burying another one. And I have the name of a man up in northern Washington, apparently.
Please support this channel by subscribing and leaving comments.
Before I met Tom Slick, I'd been in the Himalayas 2 or 3 times, and on this particular occasion I've been in the little country of India. There are 3 countries north of India, Nepal, Sikkim and Bhutan. And I'd gone on a short Yeti expedition, I think about a month, with some Sherpas. We found a single track in the scree of a glacier. I think I still have it. And we sort of expected to find it. It didn't startle us, they just said, oh, there's a Yeti track. Later we realized how priceless and how valuable a track like that was. Because nowadays, a Bigfoot track is 100 times more important if you can find it, if it's a real track. Because as Jim Buchan, who's a scientist back then, knows, there just might be in it a particle of skin, of tissue. And all sorts of things can be done with that tissue nowadays, with DNA analysis and so on. So you do find a track. If anyone to find a track, I would say, get down on your hands and knees with a magnifying glass and treat it as something extremely valuable. I've seen 3 sets of tracks in 32 years. One was 300 footprints in Bluff Creek in 1960, Bluff Creek, Northern California. One was a set of footprints in Skamania County in the snow, and one was a single track in Central Oregon, just one footprint after a sighting. That's all. That's all I've seen in all these years. Yes.
I was just curious as to who or whom you are being funded by for your new 5-year research project.
We're associated with a group called the Academy of Applied Science of Boston, Massachusetts. And they've worked with us across the years on a number of projects. They helped us to build the information center in the Dalles years ago. They're the people we're working with now. Yes.
What is your opinion of that business in the Dalles with the kids and the supposedly he shot one with a shotgun, blah blah blah? Is that, in your opinion, did that actually happen?
That particular thing, I think that was, I think maybe children, not children, young men and young women, perhaps drinking, playing spooky games with one another up on a place called Table Mountain, firing at something at night, a shadow. A Bigfoot, I don't know. The other thing about the Dalles is the extraordinary sightings there in 1971, correct me if I'm wrong on my dates, when 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people saw one, 3 men together, a single man, and then a school teacher and his wife saw it twice over the course of 4 or 5 days in the same area. And I got there soon after that, saw footprints in the grass, not very distinct. And I think they all saw something. They all said it was gray. They all said it was about 6.5 feet tall. Stood under a tree, looked at them. The school teacher was coming in his car, and he swung the headlights of the car on it, saw it standing there, and he got out of the car and ran down to his trailer and got a 30-06 with a 4 to 9 power variable scope on it. And he looked through the scope, not to shoot it, but to see through the scope. He didn't have binoculars. And he said it had a human face, very human. He saw its eyes glinting. And we investigated those sightings immediately after they occurred. And I think they were real. Man in the fursuit, possibly. Bigfoot, possibly. The other thing, there's been several things with young people around that area since then and before then. So the particular story you're referring to, I don't know which particular one it was.
Peter, can I add something to that? Shortly after that set, firing of a shotgun in a Bigfoot's face. On the other side of Columbia, people living back there were driving home. We saw one run across the road, and his face looked terrible, like he'd been shot up or something. And he was staggering around and went on into the woods. And,
I didn't hear that.
It's just a
Thank
short
you.
time after
Anyway,
the
okay.
shotgun deal.
Thank you.
Well, I had to swim the river, I'm sure you didn't go through the toll gate.
Yes, Rainey.
What are your theories about the stench, the smell, the odor?
Theo?
Does you think it has sweat glands like we do?
I don't know. It's perhaps all of them, certainly some of them, seem to be able to emit, or intentionally or accidentally, a powerful odor at some time. I've got several stories. I know a chap, he's a German-American, great big fellow, and he was fishing over the Wind River, and he suddenly, he heard little noises around him. He thought, well, that's a bear, that's a deer, nothing to worry about. And suddenly this powerful stench came across, and he dropped his fishing rod, and he said he began to shake. It was so awful. It nauseated him, and he turned and ran, and he ran about 300 or 400 feet, and then he stopped and said, this is ridiculous. You know, there's nothing to be afraid of. And he went back. He got his fishing rod and he left. There's another man who's a retired U.S. Forest Service person down in Estacada. I think it's Eagle Creek. And he was coming back from hunting in October about 8 years ago. He got a flat in his pickup, pulled the pickup into the side of the road. Pitch darkness. He changed the tire and he tightened up all the lug nuts, and suddenly this awful wave of odor came across him from the right, and he said it was sickening. He said he'd never smelled anything like it in his life. It was worse than a skunk, and a skunk is pretty powerful. So he reached in the cab and he flipped on the headlights, and he said 30 feet away, in the middle of the road, there was a Bigfoot standing, just standing there, just looking at him, and it immediately spun around, walked up the bank, 2 or 3 steps, and was gone. So the funny part now comes, he jumped into the pickup, slammed the door, and just drove straight off the jack, leaving the jack there. Pickup still on the jack. Went back a couple of days later and picked up his jack. And he tells that story. And there are other stories also of this extraordinary odor. So some of them do smell, there's no doubt about it. Glands.
Patterson's horse supposedly stood for the smell of it.
They never mentioned any smell, Patterson, Gimlin, when I talk with them.
I think,
Yes.
I don't know, it's just my own opinion. I think that the smell is kind of like maybe like a skunk, you know, when it gets scared or it's trying to ward off an enemy or something. That
We
odor
wish we
out.
knew, you know, if they can control it. Like the one that was standing in the darkness, watching this man working at on his pickup. You know, did it turn the smell on
Right.
to scare him? It knew, it was intelligent enough to know that in the darkness he couldn't see it. So, you know, can they control the smell? Can they turn it on and off? Are there glands which they can compress like a skunk can? I don't know. Speculation.
Yeah.
Yes, Ray.
Back to Coleman again. In 1958, this is when you were hunting, baiting with frogs. You were up in the Arun, Cochin, did I pronounce that right? Area. And supposedly you caught a quick glance of a Yeti of the Tailama type. Can you elaborate at all on
Yes,
that? Did you actually see one?
yeah, that was in Ivan Sanderson's book. And Ivan, who was a good friend and a great scientist, I think, a little bit naughty. We did not see one. No. We saw a shadow, we saw something come down through the bushes where we were baiting. We found this gorge where big frogs had been eaten. Frogs live under the boulders. The boulders are 200 or 300 pounds. The boulders had been rolled aside, and you can do this, and you can pick up these frogs, and you can catch them. But whatever was doing this was catching these frogs and biting them off. No, first of all, whacking them on the rock to kill them, and biting them off and throwing their legs away. But an animal doesn't do that. An animal usually eats everything. It doesn't discard parts for reasons of finesse. And so we built a platform in a tree there. We spent many weeks in that area, watching at night, in the moonlight, in the rain. We didn't see anything.
Are you going to have any kind of a center set up in Parkdale later?
No, just an office, that's all. Yeah, just an office. No museum this time, no information center. No, not this time.
You did mention you might start the Bigfoot news up again in a year or so?
No, we might put out a small newsletter of some kind. maybe something like a page, 2 associates who will be working with us, but not a newsletter. That's your job.
I thought you did a terrific job on the old one, too. I'm glad you just read all of it.
Ray went to the library and got out 57 copies of the Bigfoot News and read through every one of them. He's amazing. But what, yes? Mm-hmm.
Do you have a theory of why there's no bones been found or any other evidence other than the footprints of Bigfoot?
Yeah, I think the obvious theory, which you know, Jim Buchan, as an ex-forester there, could tell you as well as I, or better, that in the forest there's a disposal service, which consists of the animals. Something dies, it's eaten. The bears, coyotes, ravens, crows, smaller animals. Yeah, as soon as the body begins to decompose and starts emitting an odor, it brings in all kinds of animals. The chief garbage man is the bear. Bears will eat anything. I mean, if the flesh is black and stinking and crawling with maggots, they eat it. They eat anything at all. They eat one another. They eat their own cubs. Bears do. I had 4 bears as pets, Himalayan bears, years ago, and I know about this. I had them for months and months. They ate our shoes, they ate our tents, they ate everything. So I think that's the answer. I think something dies, it's eaten. You don't find the carcasses of animals. I mean, how many people found the carcass of a cougar, let alone seen a cougar? And I think poor Corey Fay is an example. He died, and he was eaten. All they found out there, to the best of my knowledge, and out there is just small splinters of bone, that's all. And he's probably eaten by the bears, which is very natural. Yes? Yes, Bob?
Peter, I think some research in Washington has found that one of the major recyclers of the bones are the common deer mice, the Peromyscus, who are after the calcium.
Really?
And what the bears, coyotes, ravens, jays, crows, and vultures and other scavengers leave, the Peromyscus will very quickly dispose of.
A deer mouse.
They can, yes, they're in such numbers there, and they have a calcium need, and they can apparently dispose of a great deal of bone in a fairly short time.
When I was young, there was a great movie, this is in the 30s, it was called The Elephant's Graveyard. And there was a marvelous theory for years and years about the place where the elephants all went to die. And if you could find this valley, it was 50 feet deep in ivory. And there was a movie, I can't even remember the actors, Victor McLaglen. Anyway, there's a great expedition to look for this valley. Eventually they find it. Lots of them fall off the cliffs, and I think Tarzan comes into it. But when an elephant dies, for instance, in Asia or in East Africa, yeah, an elephant is a 8, 10, 12,000 pound animal. It takes about 24 hours for him to almost completely disappear. I've seen this. First things that come are the vultures, and they descend by the 100. They eat all the flesh. Next, and then there's nothing but the bones left. And they tear into the entrails, they pull everything out. I've seen this with a 2,000 pound buffalo. I've watched it from 30 feet away. Then in the night come the hyena, and elephant leg bones of that size. The hyena chomp these up. They have enormous jaw muscles. The jaw muscles are bigger than the jaw muscles of a lion. They chomp these up, and they eat this bone in great chunks. When you find their feces, it's white, it's full of bone, full of phosphorus, no, calcium, I think. And then marabou storks, jackals, small animals, and eventually after 3 or 4 days, there's a black patch on the ground where the animal was. This is an 8, 10, 12,000 pound animal. And the insects, ants by the million, are working on this, and then the animal is gone. This is what gave rise to the great legend of the elephant graveyard.
Peter, what about the tusks and the teeth? Don't they last a little longer?
Let me finish, George. Soon, there's nothing left but the tusks and the toenails and the teeth. And those are eaten by porcupines. Porcupines eat ivory. And the African porcupine's a big porcupine. The Asian porcupine's a little smaller. And they eat ivory, they eat deer horn. Where I go in Nepal to a reserve, it's called the White Grass Plains. There's a herd of 2,000 deer, and they live in a 5,000 acre meadow beside the swamps. And probably 1,000 of those are bucks. Every year they shed their horns, so you have 1,000 pairs of horns. And you'd hesitate to drive in there through the grass in a vehicle because of all these horns. They shed their horns January and February. By March, April, May, the horns have all gone, completely disappeared, the porcupine eat. So it's nature's way, it's nature's disposal system, which works very well, as long as we don't interfere with it. Yes?
Sir, do you believe that there is more than one Bigfoot?
Yes, I think so. Oh, yeah, I think so.
I mean,
Yeah.
just in the vicinity, could they run in like a tribe?
I don't know. You know, do they meet once a year somewhere?
Well, I'm just saying, why couldn't, the reason you don't find any bones is maybe the other ones are burying their dead.
That's possible. There is a man called Glenn Thomas who said he saw 3 burying another one years and years ago. And when they'd buried it, they pushed a huge boulder over on top of the grave, scattered leaves and sticks around and walked away. We don't know how true his story is, but he said he saw 3 burying another one. And I have the name of a man up in northern Washington. Apparently you may have seen the same thing. I hope to go and see him soon. So they may bury their dead. I have a story I'll tell you in just a moment. Yes?
I was just wondering, I've heard so much about government cover-up, about the existence of big feet, and I'm wondering if there was a government cover-up, what would the end means be of the government wanting or wishing to cover up the existence of a Sasquatch or Bigfoot?
I think your question is the answer to your question there. You know, why would they do it? Jim, would you like to try and answer that? You're an ex-government official.
Cover-up is concerned, I don't,
Jim,
I'm not aware of any
you were with
facets like
Forest
that.
Service for how many years?
Well, I worked for the government, for the state,
Yeah.
wildlife department.
30 years?
Yeah, for about 30 years, close to 29 years.
So there's a cover-up.
There's no cover-up, they don't even, they're like everybody else in this room, they say, well, if it's there, it's there, if it's not there, it's not there, they don't know anything about it. But, so there's no cover-up that I know of.
I don't think so, unless there's a reason for it. I don't see any reason. Davis, yes.
National Forest don't want to admit where there's latitudes, where there's caves, where there's openings, if there's a hole in the earth somewhere, they'll shove a stump in it or something, say nothing to nobody. Sometimes they've even poured concrete and seal up and say nothing to nobody. They're supposed to be guardians of our forest land, and they don't tell you all about that stuff. They don't tell you where all this and the other is. And I'll tell you what, they're putting in a whole lot of camps here and there, rigged all up, you know, whatever convenience you need, and they charge you to go in there. Now they don't want you to go somewhere else and camp. So what they're doing, they don't want anybody scaring them away from these camp areas by talking about Bigfoot along Panther Creek or wherever it's at, you know. I had sightings, Lily and I both saw Sasquatch cross the road by a bridge right near some campers. And so they don't want people talking about Bigfoot out there because they have their own bulletin boards out there now. If you put something on it, perhaps I'll give that. Advertising our talk or your parking lot, and they rip them off. They rip them off all the time. They don't want people scared of it.
I met 2 Canadians about 3 months ago, and I asked them, as I often do with people, have you seen a Sasquatch? One of them said, yes, I think so. And he's a man of 35, and about 16 or 17 years before, he and another young fellow, 18, were fishing in British Columbia, north of a place called Penticton, and they walked up from the lake, and they came to a fork in the trail, and they smelled this very powerful smell. It was a smell of decomposing flesh. So they stopped and looked in the bushes, and lying in the bushes, he told me, there was a large man-like figure, about 6.5 feet long, with arms by its side, and it was in an extreme state of decomposition. The skin had all gone black and collapsed. The chest had collapsed. The face had collapsed. The fingers, the bones were sticking through. There was a great swarm of flies and maggots. And these 2 young fellows became nauseated by the smell, which is a powerful smell. A smell that doesn't bother some people. It does bother others. It doesn't bother me because in the jungles where I spend a lot of time, it's always an interesting smell. It just means that something's going on. Possibly something in relation to big cats. Anyway, they heard some sounds moving around them, sticks cracking, leaves rustling, and they heard what they described as a whining snarl. And they started to come around behind them, and so they ran. When they got into Penticton, they went to the Fish and Wildlife people, and they told them. And 10 days later, some Fish and Wildlife people went out there. I'm trying to find out still who they were. and then called them and said, there's nothing there, but we did see on the ground at this fork in the trail a black patch where something had been rotting. So it's an interesting question. When something decomposes, it emits a powerful smell, and that area is very heavy with bear, lots of bear. So why didn't the bear come in and eat that? What was walking around them? Was it the big bear, or was it another Bigfoot protecting what was there? How did the thing disappear? Did the bears come in and eat it? And if they did, why didn't they come in and eat it days before, weeks before? So it's a bit of a mystery. And I'm following up. I'm trying to find the other young man who has since moved to Alberta, and I want to try and find the Fish and Wildlife people who went out there and fought with them. Yes, Bob?
The one theory I've heard as far as a rationale for a cover-up, although I have no evidence that it occurs, is that it would, is the endangered species connection. That if there was evidence of Bigfoot in timber country, or even the supposition of it, that it would make the spotted owl look like a gnat. In fact, the Office of Endangered Species has been petitioned to list Bigfoot, but they turned down the petition for lack of evidence. So, I mean, there are people thinking along those lines, and I can well imagine that timber interests would be intimidated by that possibility. So that's the one theory that I've heard in that regard.
Ray's not getting me a glass of water.
Another way they're disappearing out there is you have, in the mountain, we have a lot of deep lakes that are like old craters. They're really deep, and remains could be dumped in those. And Kid Lake in the north has had something dragged out across the ice and dumped down to a hole and had Bigfoot tracks leaving the area. Those ones, that was really up there.
Any more questions? I'll wait till Ray comes back and bring me a glass of water, then we'll sort of conclude unless there's some more questions, because I've run out of words here. John Green is living in BC. I think he's in the printing business, and I think he still takes an interest. That's all I know.
There's a glass of water.
Yeah, seems to provide some time. Thank you.
John is a part of a British here. John is involved in a British Columbia Reciprocal Alliance group, which is affiliated with the International Society of Quality. Still, as you say, he still retains an interest. In fact, he went over to Idaho following the discovery of those tracks last January. And he was on the fence about fox it.
You have some more questions, Ray?
Peter, would you comment on the?
Sorry.
I wondered if you would comment for people on the schism between the Bigfoot hunter community with respect to taking a specimen and not taking a specimen. I wonder if you would reinforce your thoughts on that.
Very briefly, this division. There's a group that like to shoot one, saying it's the easiest way to prove that they exist. And then there's a group of which I'm part that say that it'd be wrong to shoot one. That's all. So there's a distinct division there, and it's brewed a lot of animosity across the years between these two groups. And I'm quite firm that I just don't think one should be shot. I think it would be wrong, it would be criminal. As I say to people, I hate to be the Lee Harvey Oswald of the Bigfoot field by shooting Bigfoot. That's about all I have to say on that.
Thank you.
Yes.
You can already shoot it with a tranquilizer.
Yes. Great.
There's a big problem with that.
We were talking about.
If you're enjoying all this rare and unique content, please show your support by subscribing and leaving comments.